What's guys, welcome back to the channel. So I got this request a lot on how to use splash paints. I had not made a dedicated video about splash paints in quite some time, so in this video we're going to go ahead and do so. So splash paints comes in a 30mm bottle, as you see right here, or you can get a custom mix color. Just in case you don't know, you can get a custom mix color just in case if he doesn't have a color that you need. You can send him a hex code and he can custom mix it. But this is what his normal bottles come in, a 30mm bottle. These bottles you can usually paint 1 to 2 models, if that, out with a single bottle. It depends how good it covers. So today we're spraying this beautiful blue on a pickup truck. So obviously this paint is airbrush ready, and you can hear there is a ball in there. So before you start spraying splash paints, this is pretty thin paint for your airbrush shoot, so you do not need to thin it any more than it already is, because it already is pretty thin and there's no reason for it to thin it anymore. But if there's some reason you have to, say if you have an old bottle of splash paints and it gets kind of thick, you can go ahead and use a reducer if you have to, but regardless, you don't need to thin it. So there's a ball in here, as you can hear it. You do want to shake this bottle for at least 30 to 1 minute exactly to get it very shaked, or if you do have one of those paint vibrators, you can put on there and that will shake it for you as well, just as good. But you can just shake it for about 30 seconds, my bad, and or 2 minutes, depends how very shaky you want it to be, and then you can go ahead and pour it in your airbrush. We're all shook up and we're ready to go and go ahead and put in your airbrush. Now let's talk about airbrush for a sec, and airbrush, what kind of airbrush does Splash Paints recommend. So I'm using an Iwata, or in this case it's a Mr Hobby, but it's basically an Iwata trigger action airbrush. Very nice cup size. This particular one has a 0.5mm bottle or needle. Splash Paints, same over there, he does not really recommend 0.5 because 0.5 is a very big needle and it can really spray a lot of paint. And the splash paints, for being so thin, it can create runs very easily. But if you do have a 0.5, as you can see, this one has a fan bezel at the tip. You can see 2 holes, there's a hole here and a hole here. But what that is doing is spraying the paint in X formation, and it is making a very wide spray. So in that case, you don't have to really worry about the paint getting on pretty thick, because it does have those fan bezels. If you do not have a fan bezel tip, you just have a straight tip, I do not recommend, do not use a 0.5mm, because this needle size is way too thick for this paint, and you can easily make it run and wrinkle on you, which is what you don't want. So 0.5 is optional. I'm used to it. I am going to get another airbrush here shortly. I did actually purchase a new airbrush from Sam over there. With basically the same airbrush, but with a 0.3mm needle, and that's what the preferred needle that he advises. That's what he does. That's what he wants everybody to use, a 0.3, because 0.3 is a perfect size, and you don't really need a fan bezel to use that kind of needle size, and it won't go on as thick. Now PSI, you're wondering what PSI. I spray at 15 to 20 PSI. Right now this is 20 PSI, and that's more than enough. If you are using a suction fed airbrush, meaning a cup is on the bottom, maybe 25 PSI is good for you, but if you have a gravity fed airbrush, 15 to 20 PSI is more than enough, and I usually spray at 20, and yeah, we're good at that. So that's about the airbrush tips. Let's go ahead and get this paint inside the airbrush. Now you might be wondering, how do I get my paints in my airbrush? For me, and it's just the way I do it, I use an eyedropper. These are really cheap on Amazon. You get like 1,000 pack for like 10 bucks, 12 bucks, and they're really easy, and they just go in there, suck the paint out, and just put it in here. Or you can, if you want to, you don't want to buy those, you can just go ahead and pour it in here. But again, it does leave a little bit of mess on your cup sometimes, or it might drip on the bottle. So I do try to keep these bottles as clean as possible, because again, these paints usually last 1 or 2 models, if that. So let's go ahead and get this paint in the airbrush, and let's go ahead and start spraying it. Right, now it's time to start spraying. So I always do a test glove and make sure paint is coming out nicely, make sure it's not spitting out my airbrush or anything like that. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to a halogen reagents first. So if you want to more in-depth video on how to paint a model car body, click on this video right here, or it's in the description down below. this video is about splash paints, of course. So like I said, splash paints is super thin. They are pretty thin. You do not need to thin them anymore. They spray out your airbrush nice and fine, and they are basically they're thin as milk. So be sure you take your cautious and do not apply wet coats. These paints, they are hot paints. They are automotive hot paints. If you put these paints on super thick, either they can run on you, and also if you're spraying on plastic, such as we are right here, a plastic model kit, and if you're not using Splash Paints 2K Clear or 2K Primer, my bad, if you're just using regular primer, these paints can wrinkle on you, because like I said, they're hot paints, and the more thick you put them on, they will wrinkle up on you, and that's not what you want. And it will show through your clear coat or matte clear, whatever you are doing. So make sure you're putting these coats on super light. The first coat right here, you should still be able to see your primer coat under it. That's how light it should be. And do not apply these coats on basically wet coat. Do not do wet coats. Meaning wet coats, basically when you spray it and when you're done spraying, it should basically almost be a matte finish, as you see right here. By matte, mean like an eggshell finish. Do not put them on super wet, and they should not be wet. Maybe they can be a little bit wet if you more coats you put on, but like I said, do not put these paints on super heavy, because again, like I said, they will wrinkle on you, they will run. And make sure you're spraying in a well-ventilated area, because these paints are pretty toxic. So make sure you are wearing a mask, and make sure you wear protection. Spray outside if you can, or like I have here, a paint booth. Now, temperature. Some might say, what kind of temperature is good for these paints? Now, like I said, these are automotive paints. They are pretty hot. They are not like spray cans. Spray cans, you can get away with spraying in like a 40-degree temperature. Not a big deal. These paints, you do want a very low temperatured area. I recommend 65 to 80 degrees. If you can, 75 or 70 is the max, or the least I should say, to 85 or 90. It's up to you, but make sure you are spraying at least, please, at least 65 degrees, because if these paints are spraying any cold conditions below 65 or 60 degrees, they will react to you. So make sure you are spraying within a good temperature rating as well. And like I said, this is a 0.5 milliliter needle that I'm using, and as you can see, the sprays are pretty thick because, like I said, this airbrush has a fan bezel. If you do not have a fan bezel, make sure you are using a 0.3 milliliter size needle, because that is preferred by splash paints themselves. And right here we are spraying at 20 psi. So that's pretty much about it about splash paints. Like I said, they're pretty simple to use. Make sure you shake them very well, and like I said, it depends on the color. It just depends. You can get one, maybe sometimes two model cars with a single bottle, but most of the times you will get one for one. Then you have a little bit of paint left over, just in case you do screw up. You can have that little paint left over for touch-up paint. But it depends how good the cover covers. You can easily get two models out. If the cover doesn't cover as good, you have to do more coats. Then one model is the max out of one bottle. And like I said, Splash Paints does have an offer on his website where you can do a custom mix. So say if he doesn't have a color in his selection, and if you're looking for that particular color, you can go ahead and go to that custom mix slab and type in the error code or hex code to that color, and you get a custom mix, and you'll get a 60 milliliter bottle instead of a 30 milliliter bottle. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much about this video. I'm gonna record the rest of this video, just show you how I'm spraying it, and yeah, just take your time, go slow with these paints, and that's what they're meant for. So I hope this video helped you guys. I hope it helped you get started with splash paints. You're not exactly sure how to use them, and it's pretty self-fired. Just take your time, go slow, and like I said, make sure you are spraying in good temperature. Make sure you're using a good needle size. If you're using, like I said, 0.5, make sure you are using a fan bezel. And yeah, it's just pretty simplified. So like I said, it takes time to get used to them, but once you get used to them, you're gonna love them, and you just want to spray them over and over again. And splash paints, like I said, they are automotive paint, so they are true automotive colors. So you are gonna get a one-to-one car basically color. Doesn't matter if it's a Toyota, basically a Ford, Chevy, Lamborghini, Ferrari, whatever kind of color you want. He has a lot of them, and you can get a custom mixed color to match your one-to-one car if you as a scale model car. So it's very cool, and give them a check out. Again, link in the description down below to the website, and give them a check out, and you will love them. And make sure you do a good purchase, and he does offer shipping wide world. So check out his website, and we'll catch you guys on my next video. Take it easy.